Hi everyone. A few of us were talking just before you all arrived and we wondered if the nice weather might actually keep you away. And like everybody's already said, cracking turnout, so thank you for coming. I'm just going to talk to you today about practicing failing. And just to set the scene, I'll give you a bit of a potted history about myself. So currently, I'm head of customer experience at a startup based in Leeds called Cocoon. And we are a smart home security product. So we've got a physical product as well as a mobile phone app that helps run the security device. And our product also works on machine learning because it listens to the low frequency sounds in your home and learns the patterns and the noises to identify if something untoward is happening when you're not there and sends you a notification to your phone. So work in a very male-dominated environment. I was employee number 1 and then was the only female for probably the best part of 12 months, maybe a bit longer. Prior to that, I worked in large corporate environments, financial services predominantly. So quite a little bit different to a small startup based in Leeds. So I've been doing user experience design for the best part of 10 years, might be longer now, but I'm sticking with 10 years. It seems like a nice round number and keeps me young. But the art of a good user experience designer, I always think, is the ability to look sideways, to look at context of use, to look at the broader environment that your product or your experience exists in, what real-world experience users are bringing to your product or service, and in order to understand how you fit in to their real world. So I've kind of applied the same thinking to my talk, and I'm looking a little bit sideways. I'm not looking just at work. I'm looking at the experiences that I've had on my yoga mat. I practice yoga, maybe not quite as regularly as I ought to, but it's something I'm working on. And on my snowboard, which I cracked snowboarding last month on a holiday in France, but I will come to that later. So the first thing that I think we need to be able to tackle failure with is the ability to practice kindness. I think the one person, the singular person that we're probably the least kind to is ourselves. If you were to listen to my internal monologue, it's a surprise I could even get out of bed some mornings, with some of the awful things I might tell myself. You can't do this, you can't do that, don't be ridiculous, why would you want to do that? Why would they want to talk to you? Why would they want to employ you? What have you got to offer? And I don't think I'm alone in this. And I think what really stood out to me was when I found who I believe are my tribe, my group of people I worked with at Aviva. We didn't work together sort of day to day or regularly, but we found each other through working on projects and seemed to be on the same kind of wavelength. And they were really kind of my cheerleaders. They were the ones that were saying, no, you absolutely can. You can do this. Go out and get there. And I wondered why I couldn't be my own cheerleader, because they're not going to be around with me whenever I need them to be. So I need this in my toolbox to be able to G myself up, to be able to be more kind to me, to say the kind of things that I would say to another person. We've all been sat waiting to come up and talk, and the nerves might settle in, and we're all there for each other going, you'll be fine. But I'm sure each one of us here tonight in our own heads probably had a little bit of self-doubt, probably were a little bit unsure as would we be actually fine. So I think we need to just be a bit more aware of the thoughts that we're actually having inside our own heads, telling us that we're not able to do something or putting those blockers in the way. And even looking at the language that we do use. So one example I always like to refer to is when we talk about work-life balance. And balance seems like this absolutely unachievable sort of equilibrium of life, to be able to be so balanced and everything to be so in order, and it just doesn't work like that. So automatically, with the language that we're choosing to use, we're setting ourselves up to fail. If we maybe just tweak our language, tweak what we're talking about and saying to ourselves in our head. So for example, what about work-life integration? A bit more of an ebbing and flowing, something that's a bit more accepting of life and its little nuances and the fact that not everything is a perfect 50-50 all of the time. So I think we just need to be a little bit more aware of that. And there is also a yoga practice, or one of the Hindu traditions that yoga is based on, called ahimsa. And this is about respecting all of life and practicing non-violence. And non-violence might sound quite aggressive, but if you think about the detrimental impact words can have, and the fact that what we maybe over time start to manifest ourselves in our own belief system, that violence is, is happening in our heads when we're telling us that we can't do something. So a phrase that always comes to me when I am on my yoga mat and I perhaps wobble and fall out of pose, as we invariably do. Some of these poses are quite tricky. To fall out of posture is human, but to get back in to posture is yogi. And I think that is so true and could be so easily applied to other things. Yes, something didn't quite work out right, but dust yourself off and try again and be kind to yourself. Second thing, actually, just to draw upon points of words, there's no coincidence that I'm referring to this as a practice. The notion of practicing something also sets you up to think, I don't have to be perfect at this yet. I'm learning and mistakes are going to happen, and that's fine, absolutely fine. So once we've acknowledged the words that we're actually thinking and saying to ourselves, and we've retweaked them, we've maybe reprogrammed our language a little bit, and they're a little bit kinder or a little bit more positive, the next thing we need to start thinking about is not thinking at all, and move more into a state of feeling and being more comfortable with our own intuition. And the example that I want to give to this, because it's so true that overthinking just kind of causes a state of paralysis, a state of inaction, that I'm thinking this too much and I can't possibly take the right step. So the recent experience of me learning to snowboard. So I've been learning since 2007. So that's quite a long time of learning and trying to crack this sport. That I married into a crazy family who are all snowboarders, so there was no other option. It was this or, I don't know, not even sledging. So anyway. So just a brief potted sort of outline of a snowboard. Feet are both on, strapped together, and you turn by using your toes or your heels, so you're on a toe edge or a heel edge. One of these turns I could do absolutely fine, had no fear whatsoever. Could just do it like that, and I loved it. I had such a rush of adrenaline as I was doing it. The other turn that I needed to do had me potentially falling face flat first on the side of the mountain, and also I felt like I had less control. And my big fear is, and completely irrational, I was going to fall off the mountain. Not just falling, I'm falling off the mountain. And if anybody's been to a ski resort, the chances of you actually falling off the mountain are extremely remote. But that was what is in my head. So I go to take this turn, and every time, I'm thinking, you can't do this, you're not going to be able to do it. And my snowboard instructor, this last time we've been away, was just shouting at me. He says, Kimberley, you can do it. You have the technique. You can do this. It's all in your head. Just start feeling it. And as soon as I started feeling it, after using a distraction technique of singing Bohemian Rhapsody to myself as I'm trying to snowboard down, I started to get it. And I practiced and practiced more and more on my own. And I really found that actually when I just fucking did it. So I did my turn, the turn that I was comfortable with, and didn't even think about the next turn. I just felt through and did the next turn. I did it, and I did it time and time and time again, just by switching off thinking and starting to feel. And I wonder if there's other distraction techniques that we can all use, that you don't need to be up a mountain, however many, thousands of feet up, that we can do ourselves. We've all had wicked problems that we've needed to solve, and just stepping away from those problems gives you a different perspective. You see that problem that's been so challenging so differently just by taking your mind and thinking about something else briefly. Sorry, I will just refer to my security blanket of notes. I did want to say something else about that, sorry. Yes, this was it. So, stepping away from thinking. Another good technique for this, which again, probably why it doesn't come straight to my front of mind because I've not quite cracked it yet, meditation. And I Googled meditation just to kind of maybe throw up some images for up here. The first 2 pages of Google results was how to meditate. So obviously we've got a fear of getting meditation wrong. And the reality is meditation is just sitting with ourselves with silence and letting thoughts come and acknowledge feeling towards those thoughts. That's it. But yet we seem to have a fear about even getting that wrong. So also, as well as this practicing feeling, so if meditation's a form of that, is meditation also a form of us actually practicing fear of failure, to just sit and to just have that uncomfortable moment of thinking, oh, I don't think I'm getting this right, and just going with it and just seeing where it takes you. And what other opportunities do we have for practicing sort of micro moments of failure, to just test the water, to just see how it feels, and then build on it, and then plan, and then develop more. Anybody who works in startup or agile environments at the moment will probably know MVP. And I think this is another way for us to practice ridding ourselves of fear of failure by breaking it down. So working in startup, needing to do a minimum viable product, to any of those uninitiated with the phrase, we've got limited resources, we've got limited money, and potentially a limited amount of time, so we need to look at getting something out there quite quick. How can we apply these kind of principles to our day-to-day life? If something is so challenging and so difficult, let's look at breaking that down and making it into smaller deliverables, easier problems to solve, things that don't feel so daunting. You know, fear of failure doesn't necessarily manifest itself as pure fear. You might not identify that emotion, but you might identify feeling overwhelmed and wanting to be able to tackle something like this. Applying the principles that we use in digital environments for building minimum viable products or breaking it down could help with that. I certainly found that quite useful for today's talk, for example. So deciding what I want to talk about, drafting through things on paper and iterating and getting it right and whittling it down to what I actually wanted to say. And even as the nerves kicked in, just kind of breaking it down to, right, well, I just need to get to the venue and I just need to talk to the other speakers and the organisers and just get up on the stage and start talking. Well, how else can you tackle those difficult problems using those kinds of techniques? And finally, the last sort of practice that I just want to talk about was from a piece of advice that I was given when I was working at Aviva. So Aviva at the time wanting to get into digital transformation, wanting to be more customer-centred and to be a digital-first organisation. As the UX manager of a very small team in a very big organisation, that was music to my ears. And I was at a town hall kind of event with their then head of transformation, or it might have been this sort of chief transformation officer, a scary guy, held the purse strings to a lot of projects. Nobody really sort of liked to kind of raise their head above the parapet. But I asked him, I said, you know, this is where the company wants to move. This is the stuff that we're doing. How do we get our team more visible to have more influence if we're wanting to be more user-centred and digital first? Well, this is all the stuff we're doing right now. And his words to me were, be bold. And I've tweaked that because being something suggests a permanent state, like you always have to be that. And for whatever reason, we might not always want to be bold. It might be too much of a challenging choice to make at the time, or you might just not feel like it. And again, it's that element of kindness, of being aware of how you're feeling and how you want to be in a certain situation. But when I got told that phrase, I even had I've forgotten the guy's name, Nick. Nick says be bold, and I'd cut out like a little Frankie says relax kind of t-shirt, and it stuck onto my PC monitor at Aviva as my little kind of reminder, because that really was a green light to me, and it really fueled a fire in my belly to kind of go, do you know what have I got to lose? And I find myself getting more involved in the digital transformation projects. I went to Paris to help the Aviva France team run a hackathon there. I went and organised other innovation events that are now run annually across the globe with Aviva. You know, when I look back and I wrote down the things that I'd done, I'm like, oh my God, that was just from somebody telling me it was okay to put my hand up, to put my head above the parapet and say, do you know what, I think I can help with this, or do you know what, I think we can do this differently. And I don't know why it took me needing that green light, but it did. So maybe this could be your green light to say, you know, the next time you've got a challenging situation, maybe just consider the bold option. Maybe just see what else you could do that's out of the ordinary, or that might just put you out of your comfort zone a little bit. It might just be a bit more of an exciting option and open up some more opportunities for you. Thank you for listening. Thanks.